Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Chats with Chaudhry. And it's a different Chats with Chaudhry because as we're coming up to the end of the year, what I thought I would do is I would catch up with some of my friends that I've been interviewing this year as part of my Chats with Chaudhry series and actually find out how the year 2020 has gone for them, both from a business and professional and personal point of view, and actually look at the good things that have come out of the year and look ahead to what they see as the trends and expectations for 2021. And I'm delighted for the first of my series to be joined by Oliver Stauffer, who is CEO of PTI, Packaging Technologies Inspection. And as I say, we're going to be looking back at 2020 from his perspective and from his technology segment perspective, and then looking into 21. So Oliver, thank you for joining me for this new series. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great to see you.
Well, Oliver, as I said, we want to talk about this. So before we do that, so for those who are not familiar with PTI and the area you're involved in, perhaps you can just tell people a little bit about PTI and the segment that you're actually involved in.
Yeah, PTI, we manufacture very sensitive, very reliable leak detection systems for high-risk packaging applications. So we're really focused on micro leak detection for the sterile barrier, vials, pre-filled syringes, ampules. A lot of our work is in the pharmaceutical industry, but we also support the medical device and food industries. And we have 5 technologies to support those markets.
Fantastic. Right. So simple one for you now. First question. How would you describe 2020 in one word?
It's tough to do it in one word, but I would say dynamic. And you know, maybe that's not fair given all the despair and pain people have experienced this year. But dynamic is certainly the one that I would describe it as.
Right. Yeah. And why would you use that word then to describe the year as dynamic?
You know, on Monday, you would have thought you would have had a certain understanding of what your world was. And by Tuesday, it might have changed.
Right.
And then on Tuesday, you'd have an understanding. And by Wednesday, and you had to constantly be able to shift and be agile around this dynamic world. Things were constantly shifting. And those that were creative, those that were able to address those, shifting trade winds, were able to weather it. It really, there was a lot of change this year, a lot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Okay, so let's look at the beginning of the year. So, we're coming to the end of the year. So when you started the year out, you would obviously had set plans in place, set objectives, budgets, whatever. Mm-hmm. So given where we are now, as a business, do you look like you're looking to, will you be meeting those objectives and targets that you set at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. We're achieving our goals, our reaches that we've set out in early January. So we are reaching our targets. How we got there is an entirely different story, right? So in January, we were looking into the year with our largest show expense year over year. We have the Dusseldorf was going to be happening. Chicago's Pack Expo was going to be happening in the same year. And when you have those two large shows, very, very large shows happening in the same year, your show expense is through the roof, right? Marketing expense, the marketing budget was up. All these other things, we sat there in January, we were ready. We were geared for a very powerful year. And immediately, those legs of the table were pulled out, and we had to move very quickly to prop the table up with other ways to reach the marketplace, for other ways to provide content and experiences that allowed people to be valued or to get value from it. You also have to look at, when we started the year, you have these other grander plans, and immediately some of those are actually possible. Some are not possible. How do we support equipment over in Asia and Europe? The way that we used to do it, that's no longer available. So what is available? And we had to really dig into the resources and get tactical at that moment. So you can get strategic, right? But the moment you're in a world where things are changing, hey, you can have all the strategy you want. At that point, you better have some good tactics and a very good team that can shift, that can adapt. You need good leaders on the team that can identify issues very early on and know what to do when without me being involved. And so we have a really great team that was able to adapt. There was, if we want to just get into it, once COVID hit, We sort of spread out. We a bunch of us moved out of the operation. We did have one COVID case early on, um, and at that moment, that gets scary, right? We really didn't know at that moment what that really meant for the rest of the team.
Sure.
And the tactic at that point was we had people working remote that otherwise wouldn't be working remote. So I had people assembling equipment in their garage. We had them sign a legal waiver that said, yes, I am ready to assemble equipment in my own garage. And they were kitting and assembling equipment. And we'd bring the equipment here for final assembly and completion. So many things like that, that the team just constantly was shifting and adapting to meet the needs and really hit our targets.
So that's interesting. So when did you actually start planning for the pandemic? Because, everybody would have seen things in different ways. For example, for me, I was at a show in January. I was in San Diego, obviously working in pharma. There's lots of talk about what was going on in China at that moment. And I was already thinking ahead, well, there won't be any live shows from March. I need to start thinking now what I'm going to do for the rest of the year. So from your point of view, when did you really start taking COVID, if you like, seriously from a business perspective and looking at how we might impact the business?
Well, I'll say, being in New York, we didn't really have much of an option, right? It hit New York very quickly, very early, and so New York was one of the areas that was sort of put on that lockdown and that mandate that businesses had to reduce workforce and people on site. Now, we were an essential business because of the support to the pharmaceutical industry, but we really had to immediately shift. I went remote, and a few other people went remote that were critical leaders, and we were constantly every day on a call, assessing the information, assessing the data, and there were multiple calls where I said, "Okay, maybe 2 weeks. We got another 2 weeks of this, right? In 2 weeks, we'll be out of this." And that was sort of one of my thoughts. And boy, was that wrong! But it was so important that I planned for the worst, but I tried to play for the best. And so we did play for that very long term. So in those moments where I would say, yeah, maybe in 2 weeks we're going to be out of this and we'll be back in the office, we had a plan that was actually actively in place that had us out of the office for the rest of the year. And that's what had us, assembling equipment in people's garage. That's what had us, one of our VPs was performing demos in his basement with one of the pieces of test equipment. And those demos, he was broadcasting that around the world. I was performing, webinars, recording them once a week, trying to put together a 10-minute webinar so that people at home that were stuck at home that needed a coffee break could get some sort of 10 minutes of informational, educational break from their normal work. We were just trying every different angle to play for the longest term issue, but hoping that we'd get back together soon.
Fine. And was that, because I know sort of New York went into lockdown, what, March, April, maybe April time, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe a bit earlier than that.
Absolutely. Very, very early. I think mid March is when we began lockdown. March, April was a very dark time for this this part of the world. It was scary. Absolutely.
So obviously you've already talked about the way the people in the business all got together and sort of all chipped in, if you like, and rolled their sleeves up to sort of solve all the problems. So what, looking back now, do you think you already had in place to help you get through this and sort of pivot, if you like, to new ways of working? And what did you have to bring in, which you didn't have, to help you as well?
So I think we definitely had the technology platform. So, going on Teams and Zoom, all of that, we had that technology platform ready for us. And, we had a lot of the other aspects of our operation, pretty agile. We could move it pretty quickly, right? So a lot of that was in place in general, but I never expected people to be working from home. Some of the things that I would say we didn't have in place, but now is a part of our weekly existence, is the managerial 1-hour calls that we get together, and the management team is every week on a call and we hammer through the issues as a management team. So that's really great. We have video messages that go out to the company on a regular basis to inform them of what we're up to. So one of the most important things about this pandemic and the early stages of it, everyone was in a space of uncertainty. And so
Sure.
the one thing that any leader could have done was to create a foundation of comfort, create some clarity, create some vision and direction for the people, and let them know that things are going to be okay. Did I know it was going to be okay? I didn't. But I did make clear that the goal was that we're going to get to the end of the year as one team. And we made that clear early on. And so that's really important, right? So we did that. We provided that, that messaging to the team and really created unity around that. So, some of the other things that maybe we didn't have, but really developed a lot better processes. So, in areas where you'd say, hey, beforehand, we're just sort of, it was happening. In the COVID world, you need better processes and better structures to make sure that the team is functioning in a way that's like clockwork, right?
So one thing which strikes me, because obviously we've spoken before about values, do you think that the values that you've had as a business and that you obviously set up in the first place, one, they've helped you, and two, have you had to revisit those values since COVID in terms of what you think is important now for the business and for more importantly, the people who work for you?
Yeah, so we have 5 values that are pretty core. Anytime you hit a hard decision, across a fork in the road, those values are what we look to. We say, all right, what do those values show us? Communicate, do what you say you will do, take care of others, be passionate about quality, and great engineering through good science, right? And so all of those, applying good science to our COVID policies, right? We looked at the CDC policies and we said, what are they recommending? What is logical? What makes sense? And then, take care of others. We're not here to just sort of, we're not sort of robber barons trying to make a profit. This is a business that takes into account the stakeholders. And so I think that's really important. As we approached COVID, when people are going into red states, we really want to make sure that they were comfortable when going into those red states, that they didn't feel put at risk. And if they, we're constantly polling and taking care of the situation, making sure that everyone is comfortable with what's there. And so I think those values drove everything about what we did. I can recite them because I regularly recite them. They are important to our business. Every business has their values, and they should absolutely use them anytime they hit a fork in the road. And 2020 was nothing but forks in the road.
Right.
That's it.
And looking at it from a industry point of view, how has the market changed since March to now? Obviously, I know pharma's been at the forefront of developing the vaccine and so on. So obviously, a lot of companies have been busier than they've ever been in terms of helping other companies in that search for the vaccine. But in terms of market, how the market has worked, how it's developed, have there been major changes in terms of the way you've seen the market works now as to what it was before?
Certainly, different industries are doing better than others, right? Medical device, all elective surgeries have been on hold, essentially, right? So the medical device industry has seen a dramatic drop in revenues and cuts in budget. So, fundamentally, they have to retrench, and we certainly are there to support that marketplace, but we can't expect that to be a viable marketplace for us. And the food industry was also there in action, but it wasn't necessarily our core in 2020. Most of our work starting in June became about the COVID response, whether it be supporting leak detection for diagnostic kits that are oxygen sensitive, or whether it be for primary sterile barrier containers like pre-filled syringes and vials. So a lot of our work was in fact related to warp speed. I even got a letter that said, hey, you're on warp speed. Let's go. And, when you get that letter that lists a bunch of government regulations and all that you just signed up for warp speed without it, you're like, whoa, and hang on, because it gets exciting. The team was highly motivated because New York had been so impacted. We do have members of our team that had family members pass away due to COVID. So it immediately invigorated our team to perform and deliver on our promises. And Warp Speed, it moves fast. And you have to be ready to move fast and deliver at a high level. So our team, we did that. And it was a really big part of our story this year.
Right. Um, Now, obviously, it has been a terrible year, as we talked about at the very beginning, for so many people. But if we try and look at the positives, if you look back on this year, what would be the main positives for you that you could take out of 2020, both from your own business point of view, but also from an
Mhm.
industry perspective as well?
Well, I think that just about any professional is going to be far more seasoned and willing to handle a dynamic business environment better than ever before, right? So, if you told me in January this was going to happen, I'd say, "Come on, give me a break," right? And now looking back, the next time a black swan flies across the sky, I'll be ready for it, or I'll be able to stay more calm, be more relaxed. And that goes for just about everybody in this organization. They'll be ready for it. Keep it steady, focus on the objectives, play to those objectives, and we'll get through it. And so I think that's one really important uh, thing that we all will come away from this event from. But the other aspect I do think is just the overall technology. I do hope I have so many people, friends that are in the trade show marketplace, right? So I really hope that this will come back in a powerful way. And that, just like the roaring 20s, we're going to have the roaring 20s again, right? From the, 1920s, that was a post-pandemic period that they say might have been invigorated by people coming back, into the marketplace after a very horrible pandemic. So there's a much brighter future ahead, right? So I think that's something that I'm very much looking forward to. But I think that we do have the technology, the ability, we have all the resources to be a successful. Um, to be successful in should another black swan fly across the sky, right?
Right.
We got to be
Okay.
ready for it.
All right. And um, would there be anything you would do differently looking back now to what you did earlier
Oh,
in the year in terms of how you managed things?
you know, Probably not, but the benefit there is 2020 was 100% non-committal, right? If we made a decision on Monday, that decision came with a bunch of caveats and it said, "Hey, by Wednesday, we may pivot again." And the year was entirely fluid. So I had the benefit throughout the year to continue to change direction as we saw fit. So in that process, yeah, you make a decision on Monday, don't regret it on Wednesday because you're probably going to have to adjust and shift to make it work, right? And so the team was very fluid, and I'm just so thankful. I'm working with such a dynamic and agile team to have made this successful. Regrets, we made it to the end of the year with the entire team. That was the goal when March hit, and we were in this in the dark of it. I just told the team, I said, numbers, profit, revenues, whatever. We're going to get to the year with everyone on board. That is our goal. That's what we're going to set out to do. And we did that. We actually added to our team. So I'm very happy for that. We did bring some people that were affected by COVID that lost their job because of COVID, and they're now a part of our team. And we're very strong for that.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. So, um, you've also had an acquisition this year. Was we've done a video about it with a LDA, and that was in this month in December. So, just looking at it from a practical point of view, given that in a non-COVID year, what you'd have to do with due diligence and everything else, and then how was the process? Uh, how was the process different to do that now than it would have been in a non-COVID period?
Well, certainly, anytime you're dealing with all of that, when you're doing all of those meetings, when you're in those meetings, conferencing, and trying to engage in a deal, right? The art of this deal that typically you'd be able to shake hands, really discuss matters and really be more in person, collegiate with people, we had to be in a digital space, and a lot of these discussions and negotiations happened over a Zoom meeting. That happened in this digital space, and then ultimately, one of the biggest issues is in the end, it all had to come down to ink and paper. And people were like, wait a second, we have to get together in a room. And we got together, we had to sign all these documents. We're all wearing face masks, signing, all these transfer agreements, all these other agreements. It's an experience I'll never forget. I have a great photo of us in the process. All the lawyers are there wearing face masks, and we'll never forget it. Yeah.
You should share that on LinkedIn. Actually, I'd be interested to see that. So,
Uh,
right. So, looking ahead to 2021, obviously we're coming to the end of the year. You've obviously been planning for next year as well. Obviously, still a lot of uncertainty, even with the vaccine rollouts, which are happening in the UK already and are planned, obviously, for the rest of the world as well. So, from your perspective as a CEO of a business looking ahead at 2021, what do you envisage the new normal to be at some point next year? I'm not saying in the first 6 months, because we know things are likely to be pretty much as they are, but gradually getting better, all being well with the vaccine. But what do you envisage the new normal to be? And actually, from your perspective, what are you going to carry over from what you've learned and done as a business now, and make that the norm for going forward into 2021 and onwards as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, January 1st is just another day in the world of COVID, right? So we're going into 2021 with some strategies, some plans, but expect that every day is going to change. And so we're ready for that. We don't know where it's going to go from here, and we're hoping for the best. Um, if you ask me where we're going to go, it's about maintaining a lot of this digital agile aspect, making sure that we have a lot of virtual experiences. We have a demo center that we've developed that allows for us to provide virtual demos on any piece of equipment to anybody within about a 24-hour notice, and our team can write up and fire a demo off, and it's a great experience. So that's absolutely something that we're continuing in the future. We no longer have to bring a piece of equipment to a client site or expect them to come to our site. They can have that virtual experience very easily. So a lot of those technology benefits that we've leaned on in 2020 are absolutely going to survive in 2021 and beyond that. So that's something that's going to survive. What we certainly hope will come back. Trade shows are valuable. We like them. We think that's something that's very important for us. So, that's something we hope will come back. We have no expectation of doing a trade show in 2021. If we do, it's great. I'll be excited to be there, but I'm ready for the alternate experience, right? So that's something that I think we're ready for. And other than that, it's really a matter of having a global reach as an organization without being able to hop on an airplane. How do we do that? How do we continue to develop our global connection to people around the world, cultures around the world, while we have this sort of social dystopia or distancing that we can't really connect or understand or really experience one another? And that's a shame. We've been through, in my short lifetime, I've been able to travel around the world and visit I think almost 50 countries, and it's that experience. I hope we get back to that, because that's so important to not just our ability to do business, but our ability to appreciate the world and appreciate the different cultures and the people of the world. And that's such an important part of your world, my world, and our ability to do business, right? It's an important aspect of it. So I do hope we get to travel and experience the world again. Other than that, we're just going to keep moving forward and doing our part as a team and as an employer to support a better and safer community.
Fantastic. Well, I've got one final question to you about sort of changes and what you might carry over, which is obviously the whole experience of working from home, because a lot of companies, that's now become standard. It's become the norm for a lot of businesses now, working from home, flexible working hours. So I don't know what you were as a business before COVID. So, but Is that a practice that one you've already got in place or had in place, and is that something you're going to carry over into the future? Because obviously expectations now for a lot of employees
Hmm.
have changed to what they were pre-COVID, where
Yeah.
before they might not have wanted to work from home, or they always wanted to, but they didn't have the opportunity to. But now they've experienced it, and companies themselves, through technology, have realised that things can still get done in certain areas, not every area.
Hmm.
I appreciate where people can work from home and still be very what's the right word? I'm trying to think of the right. I've got my, but they fulfill their role satisfactory,
Absolutely. I'm going to say that PTI.
productive. That's the word I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Productive was the word I was looking for.
Yeah. So going into COVID, PTI has always been a very traditional business, right? You show up here to do your job. And so when COVID hit, we know that we have the technology and the ability to be remote, but what did that mean and how did that look? Behind me, we're putting together equipment, we're building stuff. So that's not something that can generally be done remotely, but we do have a bunch of roles within the organization that can benefit from being remote. And so the moment COVID hit, the entire sales and marketing team, we told them to get out of town and, set up shop in your home and do that work. Now, roles that are highly metriced, where you can set a compensation metric to, it's very easy to live in that space of work from home. And so those members of the team have been working from home. They continue to work from home, and they may continue in the future. It may be a long-term experience of PTI for them to be working from home, but other policies and things change, like vacation time policies, carryover policies. All of these things sort of change with that. So it creates a different type of employee class, which is understandable, but they are metric. They are expected. If somebody needs a demo at 10 p.m. at night, you are on the phone, on the Zoom webinar, providing a world-class exceptional demo at 10 p.m. at night, dressed the part. That's it. That's the world we live in now, right? And those other people that have to be here and actually are applying, screwdrivers to the equipment and building it, they have to be here, right? And so it's a different work experience, and we have to respect that work experience and treat them in a certain way that has them feel respected and fulfilled. So each role is different. We're leaning on each role differently, and each role has different, let's say, freedoms and opportunities. And so I think it's just something that we've developed, having gone through COVID. So certainly the how the teams work together and what they do, that has shifted from COVID, and we're going to continue that. So that's definitely, I think, one of the bigger aspects of it. Now, to say that people are going to work from home and that changes everything. PTI, we're actually expanding. I have here, this is the floor plan. We're just doubling our size, the footprint of our facility, because our team is expanding and we need that space. Part of that space will be for, COVID distancing for the first half of 2020, so that we can be spread out and feel safer and be more distanced. But we are a growing company, and so we need more space. And so that's something that's happening. We do expect our sales force to continue to come in 2-3 days a week, because they do benefit from being here in this production environment.
Well, we could have a whole session about this actually quite easily, because there's lots of things to talk about. We'll stop there. There was others I could talk for hours just about that. So anyway, I appreciate it. It's been a really interesting conversation. So here's your opportunity. This is your Christmas and New Year message to your customers and to those people watching this. So what have you got to say to them as a sort of parting message to everybody?
Well, I just wish everyone certainly the best of health and the best of wellness in 2021. We appreciate the experience of being a part of your life, being a part of your world. And, it's a gift to be able to come into work and to do the work that we do. And, I think everyone here at PTI has been so grateful for the opportunity to continue to have whatever normalcy we seek in this COVID environment. And so we've been coming to work as best we can and delivering on our promises. And so I just wish everyone all the best now and going forward. We wish you guys a great recovery from this pandemic, and that we really see an upside in 2021. There's a lot of strength in where we've come from and where we're heading. So
Brilliant. Well, thank you. And I echo those sentiments completely, 100%. So all our stuff to say, Oliver, as always, it's been a joy catching up with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Rizwan, thank you so much. All the best. Happy holidays, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, well, I wish you and your family and all your loved ones and everyone at PTI a fantastic holiday season and a fantastic start to 2021. As I do to all of you, you wonderful viewers who are watching this, I hope you found that interesting. Look out for more reviews of 2020 and looking ahead at 2021 over the next few days as well. But all I definitely say is, as always, until we meet again, stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.